So here we go. Tiny bit late. Very, very sorry. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's time once again to have a look at an old performance. It's time to have a look at the Snowden Pitch. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to you wherever you may be in the world. Sorry about the delay. I was in a meeting. I was actually doing a tiny talk, speaker training with a fantastic new friend in Switzerland. And I hope he's now on this stream. Well, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all safe and tucked up neatly in your homes and washing your hands and wearing masks and just being generally lovely to each other, because those are the important things. Being lovely to each other is the most important thing that we can do during these times. What are we going to do today? We are going to have a look at the 2014 Marcus John Henry Brown Republica performance called the Snowden Pitch. Now, this was is basically the minimum viable product. It was the first time I went on stage with a presentation that wasn't actually a presentation but a performance. So this was kind of like the birth of the performance hacks. I didn't have that name for it back then. I didn't even know what I was doing back then. It's a bit sketchy in places, and I make loads and loads of mistakes in the piece, which is why it's a very, very good performance to use to show you what not to do on a stage while giving a performance. And looking at myself doing it and making those mistakes. There are good bits. There are bits I'm proud of. But there are some really, really dodgy bits of stagecraft in it. So what do you think of my NSA setup here? It's quite nice, isn't it? Do you like it, Willem? I think it's quite cool. This is what stock film services think that surveillance looks like, which is why I've taken it. This is why I've used it. I quite like it. Use the error code. Yes, thank you very much, Willem. It's this is the sensorium. I'm testing bits and pieces for the performance, which is going to take place in about two to 3 weeks on the 18th of June. So we have people in the chat, and if you're watching this after the live stream, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Or hope you're enjoying it. I think it's time to dig in. Tiffany Hart, thank you so much. I'm glad you like the setup. I put a little bit of work into it, just for you. No, it's stock. I wouldn't go to the trouble of animating this kind of thing, Willem. It's just, this is what it should be. The secret Swiss guy is now on the live stream. Excellent. Well done. Good to have you here, Praben. Lovely to see you. Right then. I think it's time to dive into watching the show. I'll be coming back to everybody in the chat a little later. If you watch the Flexed rewatch, difficult word to say, you'll know how this all works. So I'll be watching the performance and stopping it every now and again and pointing out all the things that went wrong, what I was thinking while I was doing it, and answering any of your questions while this is going on. So this is from the Republica 2014. It's as I said, it's the first actual proper performance, and I think it's time just to dive. Oh look, there, I'm hidden behind the subscribe button, which is a kind of like a timely reminder to if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the like button. So here we go. Let's dive in. 2014 Republica, the Snowden Pitch. Now then, I already stopped. The actual full title of the piece is "To Pledge the Turn Prestige, the Snowden Pitch," and as you'll see, there's a whole chunk of this is made up of kind of like magic theory. 2 weeks before finishing the script on this, I'd watched The Prestige, and it influenced the performance quite heavily. So, but it's now officially called the Snowden Pitch. That's how I refer to it.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, so I'm already stopping. The big one of the things I encourage my speakery mentees and students is to never ask the audience if you can hear them. They'll tell you if you can't hear them. There's no point in asking them. Just get on with it. This is one of my pet peeves, and I hate the fact that I did it here.
There should be tone. There should be sound.
Again, this is another pet peeve of mine. If something is going technically wrong with the sound, the sound technician will work it out for you. You don't need to tell them that something's going wrong. What I did do is put this disclaimer in there with the sound file so that I knew that if the sound was working. But I kind of I bottled it a little bit and panicked and started talking to the sound technician at the back of the room. I should never have done that. I should have always, and this is another top tip, always go to the tech guys at the back, say hello, who you are, what you're planning to do, and to say there's lots of sound files and the first slide is sound. Please make sure the sound is working.
The following presentation is a work of fiction. The names of individual people or company names are fictional and do not in any way represent any real people or companies past or present. The whole thing's been made up.
That's fine.
It's a fiction. A story. Got it? So don't go crazy. Sit down, relax, lean back, and enjoy.
Okay, what was true about 2008? What actually happened in 2008? In 2008, the price of oil hits $100 a barrel. Fidel Castro announces that he's going to retire. 80,000 people die in an earthquake in China. Michael Phelps wins 8 gold medals at the Olympics. The Large Hadron Collider does something with a proton beam in CERN, and the world doesn't disappear in a black hole. Obama is elected as President of the United States of America, and the world spirals into financial crisis. What didn't happen in 2008 is what I'm about to show you now. What didn't happen in 2008 was that a man, somebody called Marcus John Henry.
Okay, let's just stop that just there. So a couple of things here. So I realized while writing this that I needed to get the audience in a particular kind of mindset. I do this in all of the performances, but this is the one which is most obvious because I'm telling them that was what happened, this is what didn't happen, and this is a work of fiction. And so this is a story. Having gone back and rewatching the Snowden Pitch, I decided on the other performances to just chop that out altogether and dive straight into the fiction. And the first third of the performances is always pulling the audience into my story world where they realize what's going on. So this one was, I kept a bit of the mechanic, but threw the rest of it out. The other thing that we can see here is that I'm still working at a social media agency. I was the creative director of We Are Social in Germany at the time. I just resigned. In fact, I'd resigned already, I don't know, quite a while before this happened. And there's a whole bunch of story around this particular Republica and the We Are Social job. We'll get to that a little bit later. And then most of the agency were sat in the audience supporting me, which was great.
Brown, representing an advertising agency called the Black Operative Collective, was asked to present some ideas. It was a pitch to 4 senior members of the NSA. They had a specific marketing problem, and that's what I'm about to present to you now. So thank you very much for inviting us here today.
So today I would have dived straight in there. I would have said, thank you all so much for inviting us here today. It's been a delight working on your brief, and this is what we're going to present to you. Instead of all that fluff. So I wasted far too much time. I'd chop about 10 to 15 minutes out of this performance if I was doing it again today.
Absolute honor to present this to you. It's been a real challenge thinking about this for the last couple of months. Your brief was very, well, actually, it wasn't very detailed, but it was very, very challenging. Now, I know that some of you know our organization, but I thought it might be worthwhile to share a little bit of information with you. So, we are a global network. We have 27 offices worldwide. I can't tell you where those offices are because that's classified.
So the first chunk of the Snowden pitch is based on a pet peeve of mine from the agency world. My pet peeve, and I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but we've just received a delivery from the supermarket. Staying home, keeping safe. My pet peeve of the agency world was telling during a pitch, telling the potential client stuff they already know. So they know who you are, agency. They picked you for the pitch, and they know what the brief is because they wrote the damn thing. Which is why it had to come into this performance. This whole piece is just basically agency fluff.
We have core values. Our core values are dishonesty, because there's nothing more creative than deception. Scalability, a deception within a deception. And hugeness. The size of the lie matters. The bigger the lie, the more people will see it. The bigger the lie, the more people will think, hey, that's actually quite a good idea. So those are our core values, but if we were going to put ourselves into one sentence, if we were going to describe our agency and what we do into one very, very simple sentence, it would be this. We want to control the hearts and minds of billions of people by putting dystopian thinking at the heart of communications.
Now, I don't want to give too much away here, but that is a piece of writing which is directly lifted. That's an actual agency proposition with the actual proposition taken out and dystopian thinking popped in its place. So that was basically that was the idea behind all of the performances that were to follow, was to control the hearts and minds of billions of people by putting dystopian thinking at the heart of communications. So the Passing trilogy is based on that proposition. I can see there are lots of questions coming in the chat. I'll get to those questions in a bit.
We want to reach out and touch millions and millions of people and stroke them with dystopian storyscapes. What we actually do is strike fear into people. We scare people shitless.
Now, I really hate the fact that I swear there. I don't like swearing I don't like swearing on stage. I know it's very trendy to be edgy and do a lot of swearing on stage. I really don't like it, and I slipped it in here because it felt like it was okay for the character, but it annoys me that I did.
For a living. We're a new kind of old agency. We're a totally new kind of old agency, and we've been totally new since 1956. You have, without doubt, seen at least one of our campaigns at some time. They are, of course, classified, and I can't talk about them. The work we've been doing for the NSA in the last couple of years, I'll highlight a little later on.
That's really annoying there. I mean, so here is... this is a really, really sloppy thing here. I've written this very basically with notes. So I've got notes and I've rehearsed it over and over and over again, but I'm not working to an absolute script, which is something I changed later. So the passing is completely scripted, and if you watch all of the versions on YouTube, in terms of the script, it's exactly the same every single time. So here I'm fumbling for words because I've not rehearsed this bit maybe as well as I could have. And you'll spot throughout the performance that I'm doing another pet peeve. I'm reading exactly what's on the slide, which is something that I've stopped doing in the next performance. I've stopped talking about the slides. So there are about 3 different performances going on in any given performance, but this one is dreadful. And the other thing is, look how often I'm looking at the big screen. It's like this is the biggest mistake if you want to become a speaker, you never look at the big screen. Ever. And I'm doing it all the time. It's really annoying.
Needless to say, you have definitely seen at least one of our campaigns.
Oh, and the other, sorry to interrupt, and the other thing that I absolutely hate is, do you know the moment when somebody says, you've definitely seen our work and the work for NSA, but I'll talk about the work for NSA later. Either you talk about it right then, or you don't mention it at all, but you never say, I'll talk about that later. Terrible. And look where my back is here. So I've turned my back to the audience. It's so bad. Really annoying. Never did. Try to avoid that.
Decentralized. We are spread across these 27 offices, which are classified, and I can't tell you where they are. We are hierarchical. We do not believe in flat-level hierarchies. They just simply do not work. They do not work at all. And what we do is clandestine marketing communications. We never say, we do work for this client. We never say, I am a creative director for this organization. You will never see a press release in international marketing newspapers. We are not in campaign, and in Germany we are not in V&V.
Turn it back to the audience there. It's really, really annoying. Super annoying. Okay. Well, there's some questions. I feel that I need to answer the questions that are coming in the chat. So let's go to the chat. Chat. So I'm back in the sensorium. Okay, so here. So let's go and have a look in the chat. How do you get from beginner to a major conference keynote? You do as many as you can, and you do them as well as you can. And if you want to do that as well as you can, then you have to practice. It's literally that simple. You really have to practice, and you can get help. You know, there are videos online. You can watch things like this. You can book me for a speakery session, but you just have to work really, really hard. It's taken me 7 years to get where I think I needed to be. How long did I spend preparing this one? I wrote and designed. This was more designed than written. I think I probably spent about a week actually hands-on building it, but I spent maybe 6 months thinking about it. Had a lot to do with the client that I was working with at the time as well, but we'll get to that. Throw that one forward. We'll get to that one a little bit later when we get into the nuts and bolts of the piece. The ums and ahs, are they part of the character or because you're new to this? It's because I haven't practiced enough. And it's not scripted enough. I'm convinced that this whole piece would have been so much better, so much tighter, have more pace if it had been scripted properly. I'm convinced of that. Could pass off as part of the performance. The character would read off his slides. Yeah, I would if I didn't own my mistakes, then I could definitely do that. But if I was doing that today, I would have probably have made a feature out of it. It doesn't feel like it's being used properly enough. So the whole thing of, the mistakes that I'm making, the ums, the ahs, the turning of my back to the audience, the reading off of the slides, I would have probably made a feature of it. Something like a voiceover in a similar way that I did with Rachel. So I'd turn my back and I'd be pointing at things, and then the voiceover would come over and say, he thinks he's a great speaker, but he isn't. Look at him reading off of his slides. So I have to own up to that and own it as a mistake. You see, because anything else would just be untrue. What about the character you're playing a speaker? Would it still not be parts of the bad speaker? Yeah, that's the answer to that question. Someone started clapping for the hierarchy. Yes, well, there's a lot of insider jokes in this, which are very, very... There were people in the audience that knew the insider jokes. I think anybody that's ever worked for an agency, particularly at that time, back in 2014, flat hierarchies were a bit of a thing. And my opinion of flat hierarchies were always well known, particular to the people in the audience. There was a whole row of them giggling and clapping just to that one thing. How do you get more bookings? It's the same answer, I'm afraid. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to shine with great talks. Each performance you do, each talk you do at the conference is just another step to doing the next one. So you have to do a really good talk. You have to and be nice to people. That's not helpful. Don't bother with agencies, getting yourself a speaker agent, because they never work. Anyway, let's go back to the piece.
Products. We have 4 products. Dystopia Plus. Dystopia Plus is living in a 5-minute future. We do not believe in science fiction. We believe in dystopia. We believe living in a future which is about 5 minutes away. It's a plausible science fiction. It's something that you could actually truly believe in. Strategy, the art of the worked shoot. What we actually do is help clients create communications that appear that they're actually working against themselves. Technology. Something we're working on at the moment is visual data journalism. It's going to be a new thing in the next couple of years. And we're very, 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 very excited about some of the projects we've been working with newspapers across Europe. And deception, the lie within a lie. And we do some good old-fashioned advertising as well, so it's quite cool.
So it's quite cool. Honestly, sometimes when I watch this, I cringe at the ad-libbing. I mean, I could sell this off as being part of the character, but I'm not quite sure what was happening there with "it's quite cool." It's a bit silly, really. It's just a question come in here about I do put Easter eggs in this in each of my performances so that I can kind of like giggle to myself while I'm doing them. Yes, this whole thing is one big Easter egg. To be fair, I mean the underlying story is quite serious, but this is almost my goodbye gift to the advertising and marketing and comms world, holding up a mirror and saying this is actually what you do, guys, and it's a bit silly.
Services are these. So we do classic publishing, so we work on fiction, games, newspapers. We do advertising with payout strategy, whatever. But what we're particularly proud of, and this is a product that we're working on quite hard at the moment, is lobbying. We work with blogger outreach, of course, conspiracy outreach, which is something that we're very, very proud of, and whistleblower management. Whistleblower management we've been working on since around about 1973. Worked excellent in Washington during the 70s. And then we, of course, we do the usual bespoke content and scheduling, content plans and stuff. So it's basic, standard kind of services. That being said, let's have a look at the work we've been doing for you guys since around 2001. We've been working on these products. MyPedia. We started MyPedia in 2001. It's a managed source knowledge with about 115 million users a day. MyPlaced is a place where we collect emotional trivia and stuff around music. That has about 110 million users at the moment. We started that in 2004. MyFace 2003. MyFace in 2004, which at the present time has 120 million active users, and something which we started 2 years ago. Thank you. Started 2 million.
Okay, so the clapping you can hear in the background is coming from stage 1. So at the time I'm doing this, it's the last thing of the day. It's the Monday, and Republica asked me if I wouldn't mind going on at the same time as Sasha Lobo, so that the English speakers have something to look at. That was their thinking behind that. If you don't know who Sasha Lobo is, he's kind of like the #1 ticket-selling attraction of the Republica. He always closes. He always closes day one, and it's always full. Stage 1 is completely full. And I was very, very surprised that anybody turned up to mine at all. And it was slightly disconcerting. There were many things that were slightly disconcerting, which I'll get to, in a minute. But the clapping from stage 1 was threw me off every now and again. As the context, the whole setup of the Republica at any conference actually, is always very, very odd. People come, people go. It's not like theatre or film. People get up in the middle of your thing and just leave. Or you hear clapping from the stage opposite or something. So it's an odd place to be, and it's even odder when you're trying to do a performance and not just a normal talk. Yeah, I'm really pleased with the names of the products. I'm glad you like them. They always make me giggle. Willem, the edit is actually this is the Republica edit. So they're editing this on the fly. So I'm pretty sure this may have actually been on the live stream that they had, because it was on stage 2. But they edit this on the fly, and this video was made available, I think, the next day. So they do this very quickly. It's incredible what they do.
2 years ago, My Wit, which is a platform for delivering short messages. It's kind of like hyper-relevant opinionation. These are working quite well. We're considering selling My Place to a media property, and we're probably going to float My Face and My Wit within the next, 10 years. We've been working on something called Bransolin. Bransolin is a highly specialized...
There we go. Look, you see, this is the kind of thing that I always, when I'm training with people, is that if you practice, like properly practice, and I didn't practice as much as I would have liked to for this, because there was a lot going on. At the same time, we were launching a very big campaign with a very, very famous person at that conference, and I was setting up my own business. So I didn't spend as much time rehearsing this as I probably should have, as I definitely should have. So you have those kind of like gaps. And sometimes people ask me, are those gaps part of the timing? It would be, I could say yes, but obviously, that's a lack of practice right there. And the Bransolin is something that pops up in all of my talks. It was created by another character of mine called Sakram, but in a much more fun way. But with the black operatives, it becomes very sinister.
Experimental hormone. It's not a drug, it's a hormone that we've been working on in the last couple of months, which makes users or potential customers highly susceptible to brand messaging. Like I said, it's very, very experimental, and we've had did a focus group and talked to one of the users of Bransolin. Let's see what he has to say.
Oh, Bransolin. Yeah. I was involved in the first wave of Bransolin tests. Yeah, that was a bit weird actually, because I went crazy for sanitary towels and started binge buying a particular brand, which was a bit strange because, I am a man.
So that's me, and I'm not wearing a wig. That is my actual hair. I'd recorded that for something else years earlier. And I had that amount of hair. I looked like Krusty the Clown for the character for Sakram, who had this wild, crazy hair. And that is shot on a tiny little kind of like cyber shot camera from Sony, I think. That was my hair. That was my actual hair.
But on the second stage of the Bransolin test series, I got really into a particular kind of energy drink. Yeah. And I'm actually planning to do a incredible stunt with that brand. I'm planning to go up in a really, really big balloon up into space and jump out of the balloon from space. Yeah, so side effects? No, I'm completely normal.
Yeah, so as you can see, that Brantolin is actually starting to kick in there. We're very, very keen to implement.
It's really odd that the editing of that, I would have done everything as much quicker now. All of the things, all of the pace of the stuff I'm working on is much quicker. I would get to the point just get it done. But there I was playing around with, because I thought, another mistake that a lot of people make is if you get a 30-minute slot, they think I have to fill out the 30-minute slot. You don't. You really, really, really don't. Kurt Vonnegut, get to the end of the story as quickly as you can. That's the kind of thing you should be going for. So, like I said earlier, I would chop up at least 10 minutes out of this talk, maybe more.
Now, across a number of test markets within the next couple of years. So that's what we've been doing for you, but let's have a look at the brief. This is what you gave us to work on. Leverage the internet in order to raise awareness for the NSA brand within the espionage community and key global markets, raise awareness for and increase sales of the NSA product range by $100 billion.
Okay, so here I'm just waffling on and reading it off. I know it's probably part of the character, but it's not something that I would really, really do anymore. And it is my absolute pet peeve during my time at the agencies when the person running the pitch would read the brief back to the client. It's just, don't do it. I hope they don't do it anymore.
No, not really. I mean, I know CIA are, and of course there's MI6, it's James Bond, isn't it? James Bond.
Okay, so the premise here, I'm going to let this run. The premise here is NSA have products that they need to sell, but nobody's buying them because they don't have any visibility. That's the basic premise of this entire performance, that the NSA need to sell products.
A TV show about time travel.
What's interesting here is that he did actually remember the show 7 Days, which is an NSA program about time travel. What he was actually saying there confirmed the research that we've been doing for you guys. The CIA, FBI, very, very popular, very well known within the community. FBI, and it's because of...
I've watched this a lot of times, and I'm pretty sure that my fly is open. I'm pretty sure that you can see my underpants. If you look very carefully, it looks like I'm pretty sure my trousers aren't buttoned properly.
The X-Files, MI6, massive James Bond thing going on there. Interestingly enough, the Mossad is very, very well known, but you at the NSA, nobody really knows you at all, which is something that we need to address. Now, you've asked us to have a look at your product range. We've picked out here Cottonmouth, Candygram, Trinity, and Rage Masters. You know, Cottonmouth is an excellent product. 50 units for $1 million a shot. That's probably a little bit too steep with your current share of voice. And as you see, these are very, very competitive sales targets that you're aiming for here. But we're kind of confident that by the time we launch the campaign around 2013, 2014, we'll be able to position those 49 products perfectly, and that you will, so that you will be able to manage the $100 billion target by 2018. But of course, these people here, the people who have the most share of voice, are actually your potential customers.
So let's just dive a little bit into kind of how I got to the idea behind the Snowden pitch. So it's 2013. It's the end of 2013, and gone into 2014, and the salami tactic of information around Snowden and the NSA scandal. We're kind of like throwing out little bits of tidbits every couple of weeks. And the one that caught my eye the most was the story in the Spiegel in Germany about the products. And these products have fantastic names, and you'll see them all later. But Cottonmouth and Candygram and they're fantastic names. And Spiegel printed or put online these product lists, and each of these products had a unit price. So I was looking at this list and I was thinking, well, if they have, they need clients, because who are they selling them to? And that's when the idea for the Snowden pitch started to take shape. Who are they going to sell these products to?
And clients. And we need to figure out how we're going to get them interested in what you're doing. So these are the key performance indicators. This is what you're after here. $100 billion sales, 82% rise in awareness, a 90% drop in conspiracy noise, but it's still missing something. It's missing that certain something, and this is what we call magic. We need to find that magical thing for the NSA. So let's have a look at the strategy. We've been working quite heavily on the strategy piece. The strategy is deception through truth. As you may know, you've probably been working with the AIDA model over the last couple of years. It's a cognitive marketing model. We really don't feel that that's going to rock your world on this one. We feel that you need a new kind of model to really touch the hearts and minds of your global markets. So the model that we've been working on for you, this is something that we've built, is built around this insight. The insight, please deceive me. We've seen that most of your target audience really want to be deceived. So we've built...
When I wrote that down, I think I talked about this last time. When I wrote that down, I had a little giggle. And every time I got to that slide while I was practicing it, I had like this little singing voice in my head singing, please deceive me, let me go. I'm a bit annoyed I didn't do something with that, but the insight is quite a strong one. Please deceive me.
The model around this, and the model is truth. It's a phase model. It's, again, highly experimental, but we really do believe that this dystopian marketing model is exactly where you need to be going. Trauma, resistance, unity, trust, and hate. Trauma. A campaign or story so shocking that the audience is traumatized to such an extent that they find it impossible to disregard it as anything other than the truth. It's the 5 minute in the future. Resistance. This is reverse brand love we're working with here. The campaign the campaign or story motivates
We'll let him kind of rattle these through. So it's basically a one big advertising Easter egg. There are so many insider gags in this piece. If you're working in advertising, a lot of these things you've heard. Specifically, if you've ever been involved in a pitch. So, having the insight, building a model, in this case, a dystopian marketing model, for heaven's sake. It's smoke and mirrors stuff. But instead of doing smoke and mirrors for a yogurt or sanitary towels, we're doing it with privacy and national security.
Hate. In this, the call to action phase, the audience accepts that they have been deceived by the truth and that we leverage their anger into a conversion, the customer journey. So that's the model that we've been working on for you. And we believe that anger is an energy, legislation is lethargy. And we believe that if we implement this in the proper way, we can really start touching those target groups that we believe you should.
That's a slide that I call presentation fluff. It's a stumble slide. It's the slide that gets in the way. It shouldn't be there. I could have just done that as a voiceover.
Within that group. The peak oilers, these are people that believe that oil is going to run out tomorrow and we need to buy seeds. Sapruders, these are people who spend most of their time trying to work out who shot John F. Kennedy. And the tinfoilers are the people who wear tinfoil on their head because they think that you are listening to them. So these are the people that you really, really need to be talking.
See, that's something there that I would say. I explained that slide, and it's probably a slide I wouldn't have to explain anymore. I think most people would have got that slide without me having to explain it. I could have said something else, something richer, a little bit more interesting there.
And you really, really need to leverage Germany.
Another fluff slide. Get rid of it, Marcus.
Because if you
What's the matter with you?
leverage Germany, the rest will follow.
Yeah, it's fluff. Get rid of it. Get out.
So what we have here is deception colliding with truth. And at the intersection of deception and truth, you have an opportunity. And we'd like to put something in that opportunity. What we'd like to put in that opportunity is a protagonist.
So this is 2014. Storytelling is still a thing in advertising. There's a lot of, I don't think story doing have been invented yet. It's such a shame that it was invented at all. But the idea of having protagonists in your slide decks, in your pitches for clients and things, that was very en vogue. It probably still is. I'm not ashamed to admit that I've actually pitched this kind of stuff myself. It's very helpful to kind of like to frame the thinking in terms of a protagonist. But this is very, very zeitgeisty.
The hero of this story. The protagonist is a blank canvas that we could paint masses of pictures with at any given time.
Fluff, Marcus, get rid of it.
And what we've done is we've put this protagonist into a campaign. And we'd like to call this, and we're very, very excited about this campaign.
See, that's a line there that was very, very important to me. I really wanted to get that line in there. And I buggered it up. And then I realized I buggered it up, and then I went back and I said it again. I should have just left it and put it in somewhere else. And that's all about practice and confidence. So what we're watching here is we're watching somebody trying to, like, I'm doing something new, and nobody's ever done that before. And so I didn't have anybody to kind of like copy. And so I'm trying to work out all the mechanics of how to make all of this work. There's kind of like, I've got friends in the audience that are looking at me confused. My wife is in the audience, and it's the first time she's actually seen me live on stage. And I've got this one line that I desperately want to get in there because it's the line that is always said in a pitch, and I buggered it up. And instead of being smooth and confident and putting it in somewhere else, I stumbled and just lost it.
We really want to do this campaign for you.
Yeah.
We're calling this campaign an everyday Mr. Bond. He's not a muscly guy. He's got no six-pack. When he gets out of the water, when he gets out of the ocean, when he's gone swimming, nobody turns around and looks at him. He's not getting out of the Barbados Ocean. He's getting out of a bathtub, and he'll probably slip up on a bar of soap. He's a shy, quiet, nice kind of guy. A coffee-grinding kind of guy. He's a thoughtful kind of guy. He doesn't have an Aston Martin. He has a bike with a basket and a dynamo. He's a very articulate kind of guy, though. He's very good at talking. He talks for hours. But he's not super clever. He's just articulate. And he's a visionary kind of patriot. He's got a completely different idea of what patriotism could be. It's somewhere between truth, and deception. So this is kind of like the setup of the emotional.
Okay, so the piece is actually written in the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. So again, it's a classic 3-act structure. So the beginning, where the character's waffling on about what the agency is, that's kind of that's the pledge. And now we're segueing into the turn. So this is actually kind of like we're seeing the magic trick now happen. I wrote this piece because of the shopping list from the NSA that was published in the Spiegel, and because I watched hours and hours of Snowden talking, and he's just too good to be true. He is just too good in front of a camera. And that got me thinking, what if it was a marketing campaign to sell more products for the NSA?
Like touch points around this protagonist that we're proposing to set up for you guys. So setting him up, to use your own language, your own terminology, the legend of our protagonist. We're introducing you today to Mr. Stephen Winterstone. Stephen Winterstone has stumbled upon a wide-scale surveillance program devised by the NSA and has decided to take on his own government and NSA in a bid to fight for freedom, an American way of life. Hunted by secret agents, Stephen reaches out to journalists and the internet community for help. Will he win his battle? So that's just a very, very simple kind of like, story synopsis that we'd like to work with Stephen here. Stephen's just a working title. We could call him anything. So what we'd like to do here is something very, very simple that we've
what I do in this piece is I'm basically pulling the audience is kind of now in the first part, in the first act, they're looking at me and saying, Marcus, what are you doing? What is this? I don't get it. So with the truth model, they're kind of thinking, oh, I see what he's doing now. And then here, their faces are, oh, I get it. This is what he's doing. So all of this stuff is just basically, this is kind of setting up the idea of him as a campaign to sell more products.
So in the product, to use your own terminology again, we're going to split into pledge, turn, and prestige, which is a magic theory that that I'll go into in a little bit later, but that's kind of how we want to build this for you. There's a lot of emotional stuff that's going to go on with Stephen here. We're moving between hate, moving between love,
Laugh, Marcus, stop it.
Patriot. So we're playing with all of those things we talked about earlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Stephen as a protagonist and we're going to pack him into these phases. And these phases will form the part of the campaign that we're proposing to do for you guys. The phases are the pledge, turn, and prestige. These come from magic. A very, very simple idea. The pledge. I am going to make this disappear. So I'm going to tell you that this is going to happen. The turn. The turn is when I say, come really, really close and watch this. So you're watching really, really closely and I make it disappear. And you spend all of your time wondering about how I made it disappear. You're that close that you can't really see what's going on somewhere else. And then the prestige is when I make it either appear again or the bigger story becomes apparent. Maybe how I did it. And this is how we wish to do the campaign. The pledge. I will make it disappear.
You see, if I was doing this again now, that would have been 7 sentences. Much more pace, much clearer, completely scripted, and on point. Probably with a little film to explain what the pledge, the turn, and the prestige is. these are the things that I picked up all, from the years that then followed. And while I'm doing it, I'm probably, my mind is elsewhere. I'm thinking about the next 3 slides that are coming up. Those kind of things don't happen anymore. I'm really focused and on point and know exactly, what needs to be done. And I'm explaining the slide so that the pacing is slightly off. So I'm click, slide, explain the slide. Click, slide, explain the slide. If you see the stuff that I do now and the way that I train people it's something that I call the 70-25 rule. So you speak for 75% about the slide that you're on, and then the last 25% of that slide is spent talking about the slide which then comes. It just makes everything feel a little smoother.
Setting up the story. So we're going to say this is a very, very quiet phase. Not a lot of people are going to get to see this happen. Come closer, I'm going to make something disappear. So we're going to set up a particular level of interest in a very, very small niche part of your potential customer base. The next piece is what we call the honey trap. Now, the honey trap is Stephen will only talk to a very, very select group of people. He will only talk to the Wall Street Journal, to Spiegel, and to the Guardian. Why? Because we've installed visual journalist agents within those organizations. They're sitting there waiting for masses of data to do pretty pictures with. We're also going to...
It's quite interesting watching this again. I feel the need that I need to explain every single nut and bolt of the idea. I don't do that anymore. I have enough confidence in the things I'm doing to just get on and do them. But here, I'm still, it's still, like I said, it's the minimum viable product. I'm still trying to work out what it is I'm supposed to be doing. And to be honest, I'm still very much in the agency world. That's how we did it. Explain every single nut and bolt.
So this is, again, we're working a little bit with
we're in the
stuff,
pledge.
This is kind of like literature, kind of like theory stuff here, monomyth. Nonsense. The revelation of the protagonist. Here I am, look what I have made. So he reveals himself to the audience, and the audience denies him and says, no, that can't possibly be true. And then we come with the product. So what does he really give to these people? What is he selling to the people? Now, we're massive fans within the organization of progressive rock. We're also really, really interested in a particular British band called Pink Floyd. I don't know if you know them. And we're massive fans of an album called The Dark Side of the Moon. And what we're using here is, for this entire program, is a working title, DISM. Dark Side of the Moon. DISM.
Now, it's interesting. I've watched this as preparation. I've watched this maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 24 hours, and I can't for the life of me remember why I came up with this Dark Side of the Moon stuff. This is kind of a classic mistake that a lot of people make. They try to pack too many ideas into their talk, and I probably would chop most of this out and just cut to the final slide. There were 3 slides that explain DISM.
Unknown information. We know that something's going on. Okay. Now, what your normal, standard, everyday, limited hangout model does is to reveal that level of known, unknown information is.
Okay, for those of you who don't know what a limited hangout model is, or a limited hangout operation, it's spook terminology for when a thing has been revealed, when a secret operation has come to light and is known all over the world, that the organization responsible for that operation will reveal levels of truth. but not the whole truth. And that's called a limited hangout operation.
Mostly true. But the information that you're giving away doesn't really harm you. You say things like, the NSA watches me. They've been tracking everything I do. Well, quelle surprise. That's unknown information. But with every single limited hangout model that you implement, there comes another level of unknown and non-existent information with it. So what we're proposing to do here is to capitalize on that. That's a market, struggling for an English word to cover up for a German one.
Yeah, this is, again, something that I've experienced many times myself, and with a lot of my international clients who speak multiple languages, hunting for words. So you're in the middle of a thing, and I'm trying to remember the English word, and I can only think of the German one. In fact, there are certain German words, or certain words, that I don't know the actual English word for them. And I have to use Google Translate or something, because they're words I learned I didn't even know their existence until I moved to Germany. Anything to do with tax, I only know the German words for. I'm quite happy with the way I dealt with that, to be honest. It feels natural. It doesn't feel like I'm owning it a little bit.
That's revenue potential right there. There we go. This is what
just read it off the screen,
protagonist can tap into. He can start selling this stuff as stuff you wouldn't believe we've been up to. It's so fantastic. It's so amazing. This is the kind of stuff we always we never even believed that you were capable of doing this stuff. So we'd like to kind of pack the turn into these phases: the introduction of DISM as an idea, the idea that we watch governments, not really that surprising, the idea that we are watching you, that might upset the people.
Again, I would probably cut this out. I mean, it's I'd script it and have that somehow somewhere else. Just get rid of it, Marcus. Just get rid of it.
The products that we have that can do this stuff. So we start positioning your catalogue, your back catalogue of excellent products. And I'd really like to point this out right now. If you're not doing any of this stuff, you really should start doing it.
Yeah, you no need to say that, Marcus.
So what we do in this, what we've done here is we've opened up the entire story. We've opened up your entire product palette, you as a brand, to a much larger audience. So we're not only talking to the peak oilers, Zapruder's, tinfoilers anymore. We're talking to the coffee drinkers. These are the T.R.U.T.H reader, Guardian reader. We're talking to pirates. So I'm not sure if you know about this, but a couple of years ago,
Honestly, I'm basically setting up a joke, and this is about nobody wants to admit that the people with tinfoil hats on were right, and that the espionage community is the most important community that they need to be talking to. It just takes so long to get there. It's really, really frustrating. And it's not that great of a gag. So I'm wasting 2 minutes of people's time on a gag which is not really that great. So, again, get rid of it, Marcus. Chop it out.
And you've positioned all of those products, Cottonmouth, Trinity, Bulldozer, Candyman.
I'd just like to kind of let me get rid of myself. Look at those names. Those are the names of the NSA products. They're fantastic. Look at them. Rage Master. Deity Bounce. It sounds like it sounds like a rave or something, doesn't it?
I've really got to give it to the guy who comes up with names for your products, because they are absolutely epic. To the espionage community. To the guy who buys the stuff.
Absolutely epic.
So the CIA, knows that you're doing this stuff, and they have and it has a price, and they can call you up and say, "Can I have 50 units of
Jesus
cotton?"
Christ! So again, here I'm winging this bit. There's no need to. I don't need to explain to the audience how people procure products. They know because they go shopping themselves. And then I do that, there, and I grab my face and bang the microphone. These are things that they don't happen anymore. And the reason they don't happen anymore is because I watched this video 100 times after it was recorded, and I jotted down all the things that I hated and did wrong, and I tried to make them better.
And you can say, "Yes, that's $1 million, please." And they say, "Okay, thank you very much, I'll buy that."
Awful. Jesus, Marcus.
The flight.
Turning my back.
Now, we've really got to get him out now. So he's kind of under pressure. We could move him around a bit, maybe kind of like Asia and stuff, put him in a safe country like, I don't know, Cuba. So that the media as a whole start getting very, very interested in this guy. Now, what we'd like to do, I'm not sure if you're capable of doing this, but what we'd like to do is to introduce peaks of information. Yeah, we don't want this kind of stuff coming out in one big lump, because we think it will just disappear, it will go under in all the noise. So we'd like to link it into other bits of news.
So what I'm talking about here is something that I noticed at the time. It was if there was like a slump in the news, if it was a slow week or a slow day, then there would be like a salami piece of Snowden news would come out. So that's what I'm wanging on about here.
Saying, "You haven't seen anything yet." So he'll be teasing the audience all of the time and getting them really, really excited about what's going to happen next. And this is basically the entire campaign set up here, and we'd like to support. The entire campaign with brand.
So I was watching this again yesterday, as I said, and I say there. So this is basically what we'd like to do. I could have saved 100. I don't know how many slides this thing has, but I could have saved a lot of slides and just had that one up. So it's so much fluff. It's like agency slide fluff. And I could, of course, say, well, that was all on purpose. It wasn't. It was just the way I was trained back then. I'm still in a kind of... The people who've worked with me on corporate stuff know that I try to get down to 6 slides. That's what I'm aiming for a presentation. I want to do it in 6 slides, if at all. And you know the Amazon thing about they write docs and don't do PowerPoint? This entire performance here, the deck, is basically the reason why that is. Because there's so much fluff in it. Really frustrating.
Thank you.
You're doing the gag again, Marcus. Stop it.
It's our channel strategy here.
Click,
a little bit of television, mostly print. Their online stuff is very, very important. No,
it's like no shit, Sherlock. This is, again, in hindsight, I would say this is our channel strategy. Click, and then just get on with it.
Disembodiment
explaining
of the
it all.
We're going to make this physical man into a screen. He's going to start saying, "I'm afraid I can't be with you today." He'll start being asked to talk at events. And of course, he won't be able to turn up in person because the perception is he'll be arrested. So
at the time, I can't remember. I think it might have been TED. It was a big conference where Snowden appeared as a kind of like this screen on wheels. It was a very weird moment in cultural history. As an art student, we tend to read some odd theoretical stuff. So this is based on this piece is based on the Baudrillard telematic man thing. Honestly, another far too complicated. I write this stuff for these kind of little things are in there for people who get the insider jokes. But I think most of the audience was going, telematic what?
And he'll become the telematic whistleblower.
Honestly.
The final disappearance of the protagonist. I am nothing but data. We're going to make him, at the end of the campaign, completely disappear.
Okay, so when I'm working with, and this is another speaker tip for you, when I'm working with people, I try and restrict their movement to an absolute minimum. And you can see why. You can see why on this very video, because the camera guy is having to scroll backwards and backwards and forth, and it's really, really difficult to watch.
It's the size of the lie that we believe matters. And the lie within the lie is the most scalable idea that you could ever.
So I changed this now. Obviously, it would be a 5 things to remember slide instead of kind of like these big agency. It was very en vogue back then to do these one word on a slide. It's fluff. Get rid of it. Fluff.
In the turn phase, we make the lie so big that it completely engulfs all of the consumer, all of your target groups, everybody. It's so large. We're really this close. We're trying to find out how this thing is going to disappear, how this piece of magic is going to happen.
If this had been an actual pitch, the client would have said, "We know you've already told us." And if I'd been in the audience, I would have probably tweeted, "Marcus is telling us the same thing over and over again." It should be a 5 things to remember slide. Very frustrating.
And we're talking about stuff like privacy and sovereignty and neutrality and stuff. So we're kind of great, generating all of this buzz around those things, but really, really close up to this particular lie. But it's a lie within a lie. The bigger lie is that we can make everything and anything disappear. You have absolute control of everything with all of the stories and all of the technology that you have to offer. We are nothing but data. This is basically what we're saying. So by 2018, you've turned the perception of everything into data.
So again, this would have been so much more powerful if I'd have not said what was on the screen, but said something that would have enriched it. I could have packed everything underneath it, but instead I'm kind of like, I've chopped it. It's all choppy, and it takes far too long to get there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very, very proud of this. I think it's really good. But in terms of my own performance and becoming better, it was a gold mine of lessons of how to be better at presenting or performing, and it was very important about as a step to kind of like finding how I could make these things. But Jesus Christ, I took my time about getting there.
People are data, governments are data, money is data, travel
says it on the screen.
Is data.
Yeah.
In a world where everything is data, you can make planes disappear completely off the face of the earth. And
see, now this is what I should have been saying underneath that. When everything is data, you can make anything disappear. So, and I should have done that. All this next stuff, because I'm talking about you can make countries disappear, you can make planes disappear. I think it was the Malaysian flight that disappeared. All of those things, it should have been under that one title, big slide. But no, I chopped it out, and because I think I was trying to fill the 30 minutes. That's something that I didn't at the time. I thought was important.
MI6. All your clients can make everything disappear too. So you have a Cold War renaissance, which is an added value.
Got the Cold War renaissance bang on. I'm very proud of that. Spotted that one. Turning me back to the audience.
So, a rollout plan. How do we want to make this happen? Well, we're going to build it on the T.R.U.T.H model, which is kind of in flux. These are very, very rough timings that we're working on here. So we'd start with the pledge around 2013. We go to the town.
So this is quite interesting. So emotionally, I kind of think I know I'm very, very close to the end, and I feel quite comfortable with what I've done. This is an unnecessary slide in a way. It's just fluff, and there's a mistake in it. I've got two 2016s, which still annoys me to this day. I spent far too much time talking about it. I should have just said, this is the rollout plan, click. Just get on with it.
We really, really want to start writing these stories. We've started, and we'd be absolutely delighted to do this for you guys.
The time has come to spiral down
Here
the
we go.
magical rabbit hole and discover a brave new world, a digital world, a world of connections where millions of people can communicate and share ideas and send emails and like things and share things and buy things and talk to each other and go places, and all down your cables, your mainframes and your code to discover who is a friend and who is a foe, and make business in markets around the world so that you know exactly what's going on. And it's awesome, and you make money, and you control people. Oh, come with us now, share the vision, and make peace for us all.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it kind of went down. It went down all right. So if you were there watching it live, thank you so much. It was lovely to have you. So that was the performance. That was the Snowden Pitch. Would I have do it differently today? Yes, I would. I would do it very, very much differently to today. Would I do it again? I don't think I would, actually. I think it's very much trapped. It's a document of its time. It was an important piece for me because it kind of like set me off on my journey. It was it was exciting. I promised stories from the 2014 Republica, and I'm going to keep that promise. So let's look at some of the things that happened after it. So after we got home, we traveled back to Munich. After we got home, our internet stopped working, and I called up the Deutsche Telekom, and the man was having a look at our connection, and he was saying, Mr. Brown, you're under attack. So our router was attacked for days on end, which was very frightening. What was happening during or before that, I was setting up my own company. So I'd resigned from the agency that I was working for, because I knew that I wanted to do something else. I had I had an inkling that it would be something to do with doing performances on stage. But I was still working at the agency, and we came up with an idea for my favorite client of all time, which is a Finnish cybersecurity client, ironically enough. And we came up with an idea, and the idea involved David Hasselhoff. Pretty much everybody who's worked in German advertising has a David Hasselhoff story, and all I'd like to say is that it was terrifying to take David Hasselhoff to a internet festival. I'm very proud that we did it. I think it was awesome, and David Hasselhoff is the sweetest, gentlest man that you could possibly imagine. and working with him and with Mikko Hyppönen on their thing was an absolute joy, but it was terrifying. And my mind was on, up to the run-up to this was, I'm setting up a company, which was stressful. I'm writing a new performance, which I'm hoping will kickstart my life, my professional career, which it didn't, because it never works like that. And I'm worried to death about this campaign that we're going to do with David Hasselhoff. It's absolutely terrifying. I think, and I'm gone on record. I'm a massive fan of the Republica. I love the Republica. I love the founders of the Republica. I'm fortunate enough to say that I'm friends with. I love them. But Jesus, were they cross when they found out what we were going to do. They loved it in the end. They got there in the end. But boy, were they cross. Whew. Yeah, it was an incredible time. Having my wife at the Republica as well. I met her a year before, and it was her first Republica, and she's seeing me on stage for the first time. It was terrifying. The whole thing was terrifying. But in the end, it worked out well. So let's have a look at some questions. What's going on in the questions thing? How do you balance all these inside jokes, prior knowledge required, snarky jokes, etc.? It was one of the biggest one of the failings of the earlier pieces, that you kind of had to have known the one before to appreciate the one you were currently watching. I think I changed that. That changed with the writing of the passing. The passing is without doubt. Maybe, if you'd like to, we could do a passing rewatch. But the passing is a piece that stands out on its own and can be watched by new audiences and old audiences alike. I think with the Snowden pitch, there was most of the audience were kind of advertising and e-coms people, and the internet. The net politics people in the audience. There was enough kind of cybersecurity stuff in there to get them excited. So I think that was okay. But on the whole, I try now to make pieces which exist on their own. So even in the passing trilogy, they can exist on their own. Although the sensorium process is a little bit like The Empire Strikes Back. It's kind of like the one in the middle. Very fond of the sensorium process, and I don't think it gets quite as much as attention as it should. So what else do we have in here? Let me have a quick look. Just scramming. I didn't get that last part. They were cross about the Snowden talk because of the fictional performance. No, Willem. They weren't cross about that. They were slightly agitated by having David Hasselhoff as part of a sponsorship thing coming to the Republica, but it turned out okay, and they adored him because he really is a very, very sweet, gentle man. He's a lovely man, David Hasselhoff. So that's it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Can I get a round of applause in the chat, please? Because I'm going to give it straight back to you. Thank you all for watching. If you're watching this, if you're watching the recorded version of this, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you to all of those who have subscribed to the channel. We cracked the 1,000 subscribers last week, which I'm very proud of. Thank you so much for that. And maybe I'll do the passing. I think I'll do the passing as the next one. No, I know what I'll do next. I'll do purpose of entry, because purpose of entry is when the Snowden Pitch is the prototype. Purpose of entry is the one where it all nearly comes together. and it's the one where there's a dramatic end. So thank you very all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So